If you feel your brain is buzzing, you're tired and drained, the last thing you really need is caffeine, although it tastes good. Here's why. Most likely, your brain's too activated to start with. You're functioning in a beta, high brainwave frequency, high on adrenaline, high on cortisol, with your heart racing, which can be good for focus, but it puts a higher metabolic strain on the brain. It's harder for the brain to be overactivated. Instead, shifting your brain down to alpha brainwave state can give you a sense of calm alertness, which is exactly the point of today's video: how to restore the brain by slightly lowering down its hyperactivity. And one of the most effective techniques I've found to work is NSDR. Let's look at what this short 10-minute body scan meditation can do to replete your focus and discover the science behind it. Let's dive in. NSDR stands for non-sleep deep rest. It's a term coined by the neuroscientist Andrew Huberman. It's sort of like a short body scan meditation in which you lie down, close your eyes, and you listen to a guided meditation tape. The goal is to bring back presence, is to bring back body awareness, and to really feel your body, slow the breath down so your mind sort of shifts into this hypometabolic state where it's more calm, tranquil, and relaxed. Brainwaves slow from beta, which is 13 to 30 hertz, where you're focused, thinking, sharp, problem solving, to alpha, which is 8 to 12 hertz, in which you're calm, relaxed but alert. This is the mental clarity state. Or into theta, which is 4 to 7 hertz. This is the deep relaxation, imagination, early sleep stage, meditative stage. So essentially the body shifts from fight or flight to rest and repair mode. From being high on cortisol with your heart rate and blood pressure up, to going down, activating the parasympathetic nervous system so you can wind down and relax, even if it's for quick 10 to 15 minutes. It works and feels like a power nap. Ever taken a power nap in the middle of the day that lasted less than half an hour and you woke up feeling refreshed and energized, ready to go? That's exactly what NSDR feels, but it's not the nap that lengthens into sleep, where you wake up groggy after an hour and 10 minutes and you don't know which day it is. But it's like the quick 10 to 20 minute meditation in which you lower brain activity so your brain can replete, focus, and replenish mental energy. Think of it like a structured micro power nap. It works like a quick update on the software of your phone. But why do you lose focus? Why does the brain get into overdrive? Overworked brains. See, when you're under too much mental stress, workload, poor sleep, the brain is consistently trying to run the sympathetic loop. That is essentially the go, go, go mode, or the fight or flight response, where your adrenaline is high, cortisol is high, heart rate goes up, breathing rate, blood pressure, focus becomes fragmented, you breathe shallow, etc. You know, the adrenaline path. In the brain, there are these two systems that compete. The default mode network. This is essentially whenever you're ruminating, thinking, daydreaming, recalling things, worrying about hypothetical stressors, the DMN is activated. And then you have the task positive network, which, as the name suggests, is the network you turn on whenever you're focused, whenever you're executing, solving a problem, you're sharp. Now, when you're burned out under too much mental workload, this DMN network, which is your overthinking, sort of hijacks the system. It dominates over most the other networks. This gets you worried and it gets your energy to think about solving hypothetical problems that don't exist, and it just wastes a ton of mental energy and resources. Your mind loops through worry, giving it less resources to actually focus on things that are really important. Now, one of the things that really works for me to down those hypothetical stressors is actually setting higher and bigger goals that I'm so busy working on what I need to finish and the goal and deadline I need to hit, instead of just thinking about other people, what they say, what they might think, because at the end of the day, most of it does not matter. People don't actually think about us as much as we think they do or care. Go and check out my take on NSDR, one of the most powerful brain focus resetting tools, which works like creatine. I showcase how and when to use it for best results. keystovitality.substack.com. Now, the chronic imbalance of DMN, the default mode network rumination, over TPN is what overpowers the system and makes you worried constantly, draining your energy. NSDR kind of tries to slow down or shut down that DMN to decouple from it, so that then the prefrontal cortex and TPN, the task positive networks, can take place, so we have more control over our focus, our emotions, and what we actually think. It's almost like switching from a background noise to clear signal, which we decide what the clear signal is. Now, what happens during NSDR? The limbic system is the core piece to you feeling emotions, so emotional regulation. And there is this tiny almond-shaped cluster in the brain that's called the amygdala. If you're into psychology or know what a monkey brain is, you're probably familiar with the amygdala. It's your emotional center, which when it's too active, we can't be rational, we're sort of feel threatened, we're fearful, we're worried. Now, overactivation of the amygdala is a typical symptom of overloaded brain, and NSDR helps quiet down this emotional part. Because when it's too high, we have something called weak top-down control. What that essentially is, your prefrontal cortex, which should do the focused work and rational thinking, is sort of blown away by the dominance of the amygdala of your emotional brain. And when that happens, we tend to be in states we don't really like. The amygdala is overactive in things like insomnia, high chronic anxiety, PTSD, essentially in over-aroused, sympathetically dominant brains. So what NSDR helps us with is to regulate emotions by down-regulating amygdala action, which is improving top-down control. Your prefrontal cortex gets aware, it starts dominating, you start controlling your actions, you're more rational, less emotional. Also, NSDR helps replete mental energy and brain energy stores. It helps reset dopamine and improves dopamine regulation, meaning it can essentially help us with motivation and feeling more driven. And lastly, it calms down the nervous system, increasing vagal tone, which also enhances heart rate variability or your ability to adapt and recover. Essentially, all those things that we need to build a system that's able to shut down and repair instead of being hyperactive all the time. The lower mental load on the brain gives it power and actual resources to be focused on something that really matters. Contextually, what this means is you're less gobbled with emotion and overthinking, worry and rumination, and you're more sort of focused on the task that you want to think about and you want to focus on. That's a prize. That's a big thing for productivity. Now let's look at the science of NSDR. And just to note, some of these studies may use Yoga Nidra, which is a very similar method. 2024 study found reduced DMN connectivity, this is the default mode network, in those who are experienced meditators during Yoga Nidra compared to control. So they essentially allowed themselves, their brains, to decouple from rumination, overthinking, and worrying. And what they also saw is increased thalamic activation during Yoga Nidra, which correlated between lower DMN and the amount of hours people spent in meditation practices, meaning those who meditated for longer and were more experienced were able to reduce brain activity and de-stress faster. The next one focuses on dopamine. It claims to restore dopamine with meditation. This study used a PET scan in people practicing yoga nidra meditation, and it found a 65% increase in dopamine release during NSDR, which shows us NSDR may help regulate dopamine and restore/reset motivation. Another sleep lab RCT in 22 healthy adults showed NSDR didn't have any meaningful impact on heart rate variability or sleep onset latency, so the time to fall asleep. However, it did result in reduced respiratory rate by minus 1.4 breaths per minute during yoga nidra and minus 2.1 breaths per minute after yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is also known to balance the autonomic nervous system, which is partially a lot of what the central goal of NSDR is, shifting to higher parasympathetic tone instead of being too sympathetic. This can support recovery, and it was also found to increase heart rate variability in this study, a strong measure of recovery and adaptability. Then another meta-analysis looked in hypertensive adults. It took 8 trials, and the results show reduction in blood pressure by 12 in systolic and 6 in diastolic blood pressure. Now, how to practice NSDR? Find a quiet space first where you won't be disturbed. Lie down comfortably, eyes closed, and put on your headphones and add a guided NSDR session. It shall look sort of like a body scan where you slow your breath and you focus on each muscle, sort of scanning different muscle groups throughout the body. Then, after finishing, you shall feel calm, relaxed, and alert post 10 to 15 minutes. Now, it's very likely that you get better as you do more and more of it, so probably don't expect a miraculous result the first time, but essentially this is like a mini meditation thing to restore your mental energy. You know how caffeine boosts energy and focus? Well, it kinda doesn't. It blocks fatigue. But you think so until you start dosing creatine. Then you see what a real boost feels like. But then after that, you try NSDR for a couple of times and you're like, oh, like this thing works. It's literally like a structured power nap that restores focus and replenishes brain energy. When to do it? After a poor night's of sleep, you get up 15 minutes earlier and you do a session of NSDR. Midday, when you're really tired and your brain is buzzing because of all the work that you've done and you want kind of like a reset, or before you go to sleep as a pre-sleep 10-15 minutes routine. Go and try NSDR today, or when you feel like you didn't sleep really good or you want to restore your focus in the midday. Give it 10 minutes and you'll see what I'm talking about. Here's one of the best 10-minute guided NSDR session from Huberman. Go, grab your headphones, and check it out. It's a great starter.